Thank you. Thank you all.
Do you think inflation is a political liability?
That's a great asset. More inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch.
So there you have it. That's the moment right there. Everyone is talking about. Fox's Peter Doocy asking about inflation. The president not too stoked about that question. I want to bring in political analyst David Morey. David, thank you so much for being here on the show. First thoughts on that response from the president?
It's good to be with you, Daytona. Listen, I understand as of the last 30 minutes, President Biden has called the reporter to personally apologize. CNN is confirming that. And that's what he should have done. Those of us who know Joe Biden knows. We predicted he would make that apology because he is that kind of person. Those of us who know Joe Biden, though, and I worked with him back in the 80s on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, know that he is capable of gaffes. He's capable of speaking into a hot microphone. Remember the famous description of Obamacare? It's a big you-know-what deal. So, Joe Biden doesn't, he's not allergic to a hot microphone and saying something he shouldn't. But I think it's credit that he did call the reporter, which he should have done, and apologized.
Yeah, so we are hearing that he did call the reporter. I have a tweet up here just for a little update. President Biden called tonight. He said, quote, "It's nothing personal, pal," after calling him a stupid SOB, as we heard before. So is that enough for the president to do in response for a situation like this, or is it because he's receiving so much backlash across the board?
No, I think it's who Joe Biden is. It's why he became president. He's fundamentally a decent person who's having a very tough month, who has a simultaneity of crises no president has ever faced. Let's be honest, it's been a tough month. He was actually ahead of the first year of the Trump administration in terms of the stock market at 24.1% appreciation the Trump administration had. He was ahead of that number, and then the last week in the sell-off, it went down to 19.1. And so that kind of stuff, it's everywhere. It's the Russia invasion, it's crime, it's inflation, it's the testing problems. They've now gotten their arms around that to some extent. But there's a simultaneity of frustration created, I think, by the president, and he had a very tough weekend with meetings about Ukraine. So, it's what a president shouldn't do, and I think he knows that.
So what's next for President Biden? Will this be addressed again? What are the next steps for other press conferences? And I do have to say, because we play all these press conferences live here, and he doesn't answer questions a lot during a lot of his events. We did just have a 2-hour press conference last week, and that was the first one that he's had in quite a long time. So sometimes these reporters have to throw out questions to him at events that don't pertain to the questions that they do have some of the reporters asking about Russia and whatnot. So what's the answer to this? What should media do in order to get those questions across to the leaders?
Well, there's always a healthy tension between every White House and every press corps, and this one is no different. Jen Psaki's, I think, done an excellent job as press secretary. She's very sharp. She's combative, so Fox doesn't necessarily like her, but she's pretty popular and pretty competent in a lot of ways. I think the president has to do more, not less, of the press conferences he did last week. When Joe Biden talks for about 2 hours, you're going to have some cleanup to do. That's just who he is. He tells the truth. Sometimes he tells it a little too much. There's a saying in Washington, you're going to tell the truth eventually. Sometimes Joe Biden tells the truth a little earlier than perhaps he'd like to. But they cleaned up his miscomment on the Ukraine. And I think, the president's got to get out there and get back in shape in terms of dealing with the press and not be irritated by the press. He's going to have to sell his agenda to beat the historical trend of a trouncing in the midterm. Which today it looks like it'd be pretty tough for the Democrats. He's got a much better story on the economy, the economic recovery than has been told. He's got to tell that proactively in terms of job growth. The unemployment figures have gone down to 3.9, 75% reduction in unemployment claims over the last year. He passed 2 major bills, kept the schools open, and largely distributed the vaccines. And I think they're now getting their arms around testing. He's got a lot of good things to talk about. They got to break up the Build Back Better, chunk it out into parts where Republicans begin to support it, which is why he was elected in the first place. He was elected because the country is center and center right. And finally, he has to, I think, find a way to protect the next election in 2024 in terms of electoral reform, but in ways that Republicans support. I mean, if they've learned one thing, they can't depend on two senators that are not supporting them and are not sure where they want to be, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. So, he's going to have to create a new strategy and repivot, and I think that's what he's doing.